At the very beginning, we are introduced to a girl named Elavon Tarantera the Eighth. She looks quite beautiful, being the youngest daughter in the family. She killed all her brothers and sisters, and at the age of 17 suddenly became the first contender for the throne. Ever since she received the throne, she has ruled for a long time as a real tyrant. She orders another head to be cut off, and the old man begs this girl to listen to him at least once. This old man is not just a passerby on the street, but a minister of finance named Belmont. Douglas. Everyone is surprised because they want to cut off this old man's head simply for giving advice. People around this tyrant girl understand that this needs to be stopped because this is real madness. However, despite the fact that everyone understands that their queen is crazy, no one can stop her. Next, this queen snatches the sword from the guard's hands and says that in this case she will do everything herself. Immediately after this sword is in the hands of this little tyrant, she puts it to the old man's throat. With a smile on her face, this girl tells the old man that a lot of time has passed since she last picked up a sword. Continuing to hold the sword in her hands, this girl said that she already missed this cold feeling. This is the plot at the moment. In fact, this is not a real queen living in the real world, but a heroine of a novel. She is an evil character from a novel called Villain Hunter, and this girl is very well thought out. After in the story this girl executed this grandfather, she became addicted to murder. But this girl, as expected, did not have a very good end because later she herself was sentenced to execution. Returning back, we hear this girl telling the old man that he dared to say nonsense to the queen and she will give him a chance to repent by death. Apparently this old man has his long life flashing before his eyes right now. He doesn't say a word. Then this crazy tyrant tells him that she will give him some time to say his last words. Next, this tyrant says that she gives this old man the right to the last word because she is very merciful. Immediately after this old man hears that he is given the last word, he closes his eyes to come up with. After the old man opens his eyes, he shouts that the empire, which had a rich 500-year history, has been destroyed by the creature. The old man continues his cry from the soul, saying that he can no longer look his ancestors in the eyes, so he asks to take his body away. After this old man decides to say his last words, having expressed everything that is boiling inside him, this girl is very surprised. Apparently, she did not expect such last words so much that she became embarrassed. Then she swung her sword. Before making the blow, this girl told the old man that before she cut him open, she would feed him to the fish. But this tyrant does not have time to deprive this old man of his head because a young guy with a scar intervenes in the execution process. Apparently, he has some kind of status because this queen breaks away from the execution to ask Theo what he needs. At the moment, Theo is in front of us Haspel. This is a character that our main character Lee Sungmin has owned for almost a year in this novel. Everyone knows him as the evil Bishop Theo, who constantly leads his evil queen and kingdom into the fire of problems. He is also a slave who becomes the court gardener, and ultimately turns out to be the main organizer of what is happening. After a couple of moments, our main character, who finds himself in this body, understands that this is him now. The evil queen further states that Theo is her gardener, and the only person who can truly understand her. That is why she interrupted the execution process after Theo decided to intervene. Due to his status, she will listen to his words. Next, Theo informs his queen that the Minister of Finance committed a sin by trying to rebel against the Almighty Queen. Apparently, this girl really liked the way this guy treated her, and constantly called her Sigma Mommy. Meanwhile, Theo, bowing, continues to say that if Her Majesty executes the one who dared to rebel against her, then it will be a reward and not at the Kazinka. Immediately after this girl hears from her confidant that execution for this old man will be a reward, she looks thoughtfully at Theo. At this moment, our main character says that this is exactly so, because getting his hands dirty with his own blood will be a reward for him. Looking at this old man who was already ready for death, this girl continues to understand that execution at her hands is truly mercy. At this moment, our main character is gathering his thoughts because now everything depends only on him, and he simply must do everything to change the ending. Then Theo points to himself and, turning to the queen, says that he knows the fact that she brought Belmort's daughter Clara to the palace. Immediately after this evil queen hears this information from our protagonist, she is puzzled and tries to understand what Theo said. Next, we watch as our main character snaps his fingers to give some kind of order. As soon as the guy snaps his fingers, two dark hooded figures appear in the palace and bring a girl with no rags at all. This old man is in complete shock after he sees these servants bringing his own daughter into the hall in this form. At this moment, our main character thinks that he probably couldn't even imagine this because he very skillfully hid his daughter in the palace. However, our main character, as one of the heroes of the novel, already knows all the details so he can do such things. Looking at this girl who is shaking with fear, our main character understands that he knew that the old man would try to secretly take her to the City of Sand. Despite the fact that this is a very cowardly act on the part of our main character, he no longer had any other choice. Next, Theo grins like a real villain, realizing that right now in this palace, everything is completely under his control. While our main character understands that right now his victory has come, we watch as the queen begins to applaud. Looking at the spectacle in front of her, this girl says what happened as she thought, because her servant probably understands perfectly well what she is thinking about. At the moment, scenes are happening in the head of this evil queen, where she and this girl are diligently playing sports in front of everyone. After this training scene comes to her mind, she asks Theo if he is going to stage a training scene for his relatives in front of everyone. But immediately after this evil queen offers this option to our main character, he literally does not have a single word to answer. The queen at this moment continues to say that she also thought about it, and Theo is really the only person who can understand her. This girl continues to say that our main character knows his stuff, but at this moment Theo does not understand what she means when she says this nonsense. Immediately after the crowd around realized that everything was heading towards a family member doing joint cardio training with another family member, they were horrified. Everyone condemns as much as possible what these sick idiots came up with, because it already goes beyond all limits and such training only causes problems. Our main character also notices all the sidelong glances that rain down on him like hail. He tried to save the old man's life, but something went wrong. Meanwhile, this girl continues to come up with all sorts of scenes in her dirty head. Theo considers her crazy, and they will definitely be killed for this. After our main character realizes that he and the queen will definitely be overthrown, he tells the queen that he has a more reasonable idea. Immediately after this guy says this, the course of events ends abruptly, and we watch the guy walk along the corridors of the palace. Walking through the corridors of this palace, our main character understands that he has finally achieved a more reasonable decision in relation to people. To be more specific, our main character managed to make Clara a hostage and he made her one of the palace maids, which is much better than the previous solution. With the help of our protagonist's new decision, Belmont won't even think about doing anything against them. However, with tears in her eyes, Clara looks at our main character, telling him that she will never forgive him and will forever curse him as the enemy of Angmar. Our main character is very surprised by the reaction of this girl, because she very strangely thanks the one who saved her life and the life of her father in such a difficult situation. But in fact, our main character, by and large, doesn't care what this girl thinks, because he managed to avoid a simply terrible sight that would have meant death for all of them. However, this girl continues to cry, asking the guy if he really thinks that his power will last forever, because Ira's tyranny will soon come to an end. Despite all these screams, our main character, in any case, thanks to this, saved his own life and the life of his evil tyrant queen. Life increased. Continuing to watch these two, we hear how the evil queen asks her servant to cancel all remaining plans because she is already tired of helping her country. Next, this girl turns to the bishop to tell him that tonight she will reward her faithful servant for his services. Immediately after this evil queen told our protagonist that she was waiting for him in the hot bath in order to reward him for his services. After this evil queen said this to our main character, she immediately slammed the doors in front of him, leaving him with such an interesting fact. At this point, the course of events is abruptly interrupted and we continue when we are transported to the place where this tyrant will use her hot bath with our main character. Looking at our main character, we observe how he has already taken off his work clothes and approached Her Highness to ask her for forgiveness. Next, we see in front of us the evil queen who turns a little towards the voice of our main character. She understands that her servant has already arrived. Immediately after this tyrant turns to our main character, his face immediately changes color to red because he is very embarrassed when he sees the beauty of the queen. Further, we see before us this evil queen in a completely new form for us and for the servant. She got rid of all her unnecessary rags, giving freedom to the rice buns. But after she catches the gaze of our main character, she is also embarrassed and asks the bishop to stop eating her so greedily with his eyes. Immediately after the guy realizes that he was caught in a petty crime, he looks away and asks for forgiveness for his petty impudence. After our main character admits his guilt, she asks her servant to proceed with the reward. He should rub soap on the royal body of the tyrant. As soon as our main character hears an order from his queen, he immediately looks his head down and tells the queen that he is proceeding to carry out the order. Our main character is very surprised or maybe even a little disappointed, because apparently this is his reward for his services at work. Next, we watch as our main character confidently deals with his work to tidy up the royal body of this girl. She tries to be calm. After our main character finishes his first task, this queen calls our main character well done because he did a great job. After a couple of moments, this girl with a slightly strange imagination tells our main character that now he can imagine that her legs are ice cream and he is hungry. Our main character is just a servant, so he has no choice but to simply agree with his queen and do what she asks. Next, we watch how our main hero bows his head and begins to imagine that his mistress's foot is really ice cream, so he eats it. But as soon as our main character started doing this, his mistress's face immediately changed. She began to laugh because it became very ticklish from such a procedure. But our main character did not stop. He continued to feast on ice cream in the form of his mistress's feet. But despite the delicacy, it seemed to him that it was bitter. However, despite the fact that our main character was a little bitter, this girl simply could not help but praise our main character because he did his job perfectly. Next, this girl told our main character that besides him, she no longer needed anyone, especially those bastards from her palace. The guy continued to eat ice cream. But after a couple of moments, our main character left his mistress's feet and moved on to a more delicious part. Because the feet were bitter, the girl felt even more ticklish. Despite the fact that our main character did very strange things with his mistress, he looked intently at his mistress and did not take his eyes off her for a second. Looking at his mistress, our main character wondered only one question. Should a real queen be like this? Because she was very strangely suited to this role. Meanwhile, our main character realized that he needed to take maximum opportunities from life, so he moved to the most delicious part of his mistress. The girl's face changed. Apparently, she really liked the archaeological excavations of our main character, because otherwise it was quite difficult to explain why she took his head. Continuing the process of receiving a well-deserved reward, our main character understood that this girl is the only one who enjoys such a strange process. Continuing to diligently do his work, our main character and also the bishop of this girl in one person continued to think whether this was really a reward for him. After all, in the humble opinion of our main character, this girl was the only one who was getting some kind of pleasure right now because he didn't care and he didn't feel anything. Then we watched as this girl's face changed even more. He continued to do the job. This guy's goal was to tame this girl and survive until the very end of the novel. Meanwhile, our main character continued to diligently destroy the garage. This girl and this strange evil queen really liked this process of destroying the garage at the hands of a servant. But then our main character apparently got too carried away by the process because he began to do his work more aggressively. The evil queen asked the guy what he was doing. Meanwhile, our main character continued to do his job more aggressively with each subsequent second. The girl's emotions also became brighter and brighter. Our main character, who continued to eat ice cream, realized that before he only felt bitterness in his taste, but now he feels some kind of sweetish taste. In addition to the fact that our main character discovered a new range of tastes, we watched as this girl's face continued to change more and more. At this moment, our main character was sure that right now, he was doing something nice for his queen. Then he decided to use a new technique to surprise her. As soon as our main character played with this girl's garage a little more aggressively, this girl immediately tried to stop our main character by asking him to stop. After Theo saw the face with which his mistress was sitting right now, he realized that most likely she had had enough of these games with garages. Having finished his work, our main character told his mistress that he had finished his work with soap, so that his mistress only had to rinse herself with water. Immediately after this girl heard from her servant that he had finished his work, she smiled and agreed that it was time for her to rinse off. Next, the course of events moves to the time when this girl is finally finishing her water treatments, and her servant is busy styling her silky royal hair. After our main character finishes his work as an underground hairdresser, he informs his mistress that now her hair is completely combed and her hairstyle is ready. But then our main character, instead of just waiting for the next order, informs his mistress that he has a question to which he wants to hear the answer. After Theo asks permission from his mistress to ask a question, she turns to her servant and then informs him that he can ask his question. At this point, the course of events is again abruptly interrupted, and we continue when the frame moves to the street very close to the castle. It is almost late at night. Next, we watch someone's hand furiously knocking on the table. Someone is clearly very dissatisfied with something and wants to take out their anger on the poor table. Next, we see the evil queen who asks if there is anyone else next to her besides her servant. She asks Theo if he is really going to leave her. In response to such a sharp question, our main character immediately answers that this is not so, and that is not what he meant by his question at all. At this moment, our main character understands that he needs to be more careful with this girl, and for some time he will have to give her advice alone. Next, this girl tells our main character that all the other rats are looking for any opportunity to stab her in the back. After this girl turns to our main character to tell him that she simply can no longer trust anyone but him. Approaching her mirrors, this girl abruptly changes the topic of conversation, remembering that tomorrow the detachment from the expedition to which they were sent should return. Immediately after our main character hears about some detachment that, moreover, was sent on an expedition, he is very surprised and worried. Next, our main character wonders why he did not receive any denunciation about this. At this point, the course of events accelerates until the next morning in this castle. After we return back to the castle, we move to some very luxurious place where apparently some local elites are sitting. Our main character is also among these elites. He hears that someone is against some proposal, because Lord Belmort puts his desires first. At this moment, this evil queen is dissatisfied and listens to all these presentations. She hears that some other person is also against it, because they should lower the interest rate. But a moment later, everyone who was sitting in this room and conferring suddenly falls silent after the door to this place opens, and a knight with a weapon covered in blood comes in. Immediately after one of the old men who expressed his displeasure sees this knight who is ready to break skulls, he immediately begins to get scared. Next, we watch as this knight rapidly reduces the distance to this old man in order to instantly deprive him of his stupid head. Even our main character, who is clearly not the first to see such scenes, is surprised after he witnesses such a strange and unexpected murder. Next, this knight says that he was wondering where the barbarians got their catapults, how it turned out that all these bastards were selling them weapons, and that's how it all happened. Next, we watch as this knight who recently beheaded an old man slowly removes his iron helmet in order to reveal his identity to everyone. Before us is a knight named Elavon Lyons. She calls everyone old withered idiots who never realized that there were traitorous rats among them. This girl turns to our main character and says that if anyone else is making such stupid plans, then they should tell them now and she will instantly deprive them of their heads. In response to this, our main character bows and tells the knight that he is glad to have her back. But she is in the palace, so she should sheathe her weapon. But immediately after this girl hears from our main character a request to remove the weapon in this place, she looks at him and asks him to repeat what he said. But suddenly the evil queen herself intervenes in the conversation and calls the knight by name. Apparently, she decided to stand up for her faithful and humble servant. Next, this evil queen asks this girl in armor to stop creating problems because she has already stained the floor with blood in the throne room that belongs to her. Immediately after this girl hears the request from the queen, she smiles and responds positively, calling the queen her cousin and saying that she was just joking. Next, this evil queen tells this girl knight that she must be tired from the road, so she invites her to take a well-deserved rest. Soon she will arrange a banquet. Immediately after this knight hears that a banquet will be held in her honor soon, she throws up her finger just like you and calls the queen her best cousin. A couple of moments after this, the course of events is abruptly interrupted, and we continue in the place where, apparently, the banquet promised by the queen for this girl is taking place. Next, we watch as this blonde, who was previously in armor, touches the rice balls and says that who has simply amazing rice balls. It turns out that this was the imagination of this girl. Currently, she tells her queen that during the campaign, she saw something very strange. This girl with blonde hair continues to tell her queen that she saw the leader of some tribe sacrificing human bodies to a demon. Judging by the reaction of our main character, Theo has an idea of what this girl just said, and apparently, it was not a sacrifice to a demon or anything. However, immediately after this girl conveys this information, she immediately forgets it and again moves to an imaginary banquet in her honor with drinks and all that. But this time the banquet seems to be real. We watch as this girl in a festive dress approaches our main character's table and knocks on it with her hand. Next, this girl reminds our main character that this banquet concerns him too, so she asks Theo why the hell he just sits and doesn't drink like everyone else. Our main character replies that he can't drink because he is a follower of light and salt, and one of the commandments says that you can't drink alcohol and play Fortnite. But apparently this girl categorically disagrees with the words of this guy, because the next moment she hits the table again, but this time several times harder. Immediately after Theo realizes that he better not play with this girl, he immediately forgets about his reasons for not drinking, and drinks an entire glass of beer in one gulp. After Theo drinks a mug of beer in one gulp, this girl immediately relaxes and settles down on the sofa, telling our main character that he can still do it when necessary. Then we continue to watch this simply incredibly interesting banquet, during which only the one in whose honor it was held, and the two girls next to her are having fun. After the banquet ends, or our main character leaves it ahead of time, we observe that after a glass of beer, he is clearly unwell. Someone notices our main character and calls it a very pathetic sight, because this guy vomited from such a small amount of alcohol, which is funny. Next, this girl tells our main character that even her barbaric child would be much stronger than our main character. She hands him a handkerchief. Our main character immediately accepts the handkerchief from this girl because it is very useful. He thanks this girl and tells her that he will return it after he washes it. After our main character finishes getting himself in order, after he gave a little alcohol that he drank for a walk, He gets ready to go away. But this girl with a fighting character immediately stops our main character to tell him that there are rumors that he and Ira have some very special relationship. Immediately after this girl finds the strength to ask our main character such a question, she looks him in the eyes and asks if these rumors are true. In response to this question, our main character immediately lowers his gaze to the floor and asks this girl if she knows better than other people that this is definitely not the case. After this girl hears the answer of our main character, she is very surprised and understands why Ira is still sitting on the throne and nothing happened to her. Next, this girl tells Theo that they are completely alone here. She asks the guy if this reminds him of the good old days. She invites him to do it again. Immediately after Theo hears this proposal from this girl, he immediately understands that it was not a request at all, but a real order that he cannot refuse. Next, this girl orders our main character to immediately close his eyes so that she can reward him for helping Ira remain on the throne. We watch as this blonde comes even closer to our main character than before, and she repeats to him that right now she will reward him for covering for Ira. After Theo closes his eyes, he assumes that this girl will torture him, since now the guy is part of the circle of slaves of the Lion's family in which this girl has the right. Next, we watch how this blonde decides to give our main character a kiss as a reward. The guy thinks that she treats him like a toy. But is that all the reward? After this girl tries to move away from our main character, she is suddenly surprised because this guy continues the kiss, taking the initiative. Will it all end just like that? Next, we watch as our main character finishes seizing the initiative and allows this girl to step away and let her come to her senses. After this girl realized that our main character allowed himself, she asked him who allowed him to be so brazenly unauthorized and do such things. Next, this girl tells our main character to never do anything again that no one asked him to do, because next time he might have problems. But looking at this girl's face, we understood that she said all this with a strong feeling of embarrassment from this kiss. She couldn't even look this guy in the eyes. Next, we watch as this girl suddenly remembers that she must convey something to our main character, so she hands him this thing. This girl tells our main character that this is what the wild fanatics wore, and she was interested to know if Theo knew anything about this thing. After examining this thing, our main character said that it looks like complex handwork, but he cannot say for sure because there is a lot of damage that hinders him. After our main character continued to look at this strange thing, he answered this girl that he would again see what he could do with this thing. Apparently, our main character is used to standing by his words because then the course of events moves to which basement room our main character moved to. Immediately after our main character finds himself in this place, he opens a very long scroll in front of him. Apparently, he begins the promised study of this thing, but our main character apparently quickly forgets about this thing after he remembers a story from a novel he was writing until he forgot about it. Opening the scroll before this, our main character understands that Belmont's execution is over and the meeting of the Dawn is also over. What follows next in the plot? After Theo, I realized that everything that happens in this world happens according to the novel that he wrote. He realized that all that remains is the appearance of a certain hero. After all, according to the original novel, if Ira's tyranny continues, a hero will appear to stop her. But since he has already stopped her, the hero will not appear. But even despite this, our main character understood that he still could never be safe, because this world longs for the death of his mistress. Even when our main character lies down on his bed to rest, he understands that perhaps this is his karma, to experience all this in this fantasy world. Next, we see our main character at the moment. When he was in the real modern world, he was indignant at the fact that the authors of the novel created such a disgusting character. Immediately after our main character, being in the real world, became very angry after meeting these characters, he began to write that they definitely deserved to die. But our main character could not even think that he could mystically find himself in the place of a person who is close to this disgusting character. Looking at his hand, he realizes that now he is the owner of Theo's body. This is a character who must also certainly die according to the plot of the original novel. If you continue to think about your fate and the plot of this novel, it will drag on until the morning, and our main character still has a lot to do tomorrow. So it's time to sleep. At this moment, the course of events ends abruptly, and we continue when we see in front of us that same evil queen who tells our main character that he was late for his post. The queen was very unhappy with the lateness of our protagonist, but at that moment he was more than sure that he was telling her that he was going to take a day off. Next, this girl who interrupted our main character's break told him that tonight they would go to observe the peasant streets. After Theo hears from his mistress that today they will go to observe the peasant streets, he clearly does not understand what they are talking about, so he tries to find out. In response to this question, the evil queen tells our protagonist that Elga told her that there is a pub on this street run by Nymph. They will be suitable to meet her.